Cool. Okay, so I've slightly digressed from Martin's request with regards to the discussion with Fiona the other night, because I've decided to keep things slightly simple, not go too technical for everybody. So we're going to look at the press. Can everybody see that up on their screen? Yeah.
No, I can see you.
Yeah. I'll just wait for Martin.
Okay, sorry, Becky, you want me to start sharing my shot?
Yeah. You can go straight to slide 1. That'd be brilliant.
Okay, just 2 seconds.
Thanks, Martin. So I just want to, I've always been involved in lots and lots of discussions about presses. Lots of players have their own ideas about them. But I think one thing that we need to remember out of all of this is there is no such thing as a perfect press. If there was, then every team in the world would just be at 0-0 because no goal would ever be scored. Different types of presses, both positive and negative sides to those, but that's all about the cat and mouse game that we play during hockey. So just approach this with a very open mind, because all I'm going to do is show you what's out there, what's used. I've got some video stuff at the end we can go through with some new coaching software I've invested in, so that's pretty cool. You should be able to have a look at that. So over to you, Martin, if you can just run through for me. So what is a press? Well, this is my personal point of view. Other coaches will have theirs. But it's a coordinated defensive team tactic to assert pressure on the opposition team who are in possession of the ball. And the objective of that pressure is to collectively dictate where they play and force the opposition into areas of the pitch that we can pressurize them to win the ball back. And that doesn't necessarily mean by tackling. More often than not, that's by them making really bad passes and decisions because they're under pressure, effectively. So things to consider. We need to start off with, where do we want to regain possession of the ball? Is there a certain area of the pitch where we have our fastest, most attacking players? Or is it an area of the pitch where perhaps we have our best playmakers so they can move the ball on? But before we even talk about what we're going to do as a press, we need to understand where we want to regain possession of the ball. So, good spelling there. How do we attempt to get the ball there? So what's the structure of what we're trying to do to get it to the area where we believe we need to win the ball back? How do we want to regain possession of the ball? So as I just said earlier, is that by 2 people or 1 person really trying to win the ball off them in a tackling situation? Or is it the case we actually want the player to turn their back to us and try to pass the ball backwards, which is a trigger where everybody else then runs to try and get the interception, or will actually mark the player so that more pressure is put on the ball carrier to make the correct pass? We also need to understand the makeup of our team. So we need to understand the level of the players. We need to understand what positives and negatives those players have within the team. And also the fitness of our team. So for example, I wouldn't expect the lower 11 squads to be doing a full court press for the whole game, purely because of fitness. So we need to get that in mind as well. So what areas of the pitch do we want the ball to go to? So we really want it wide, so it's away from goal. Into certain zones which we've highlighted. It may well be that we have decided that at half time that the opposition's left-hand side's quite weak. So that's actually where we want them to go to put the ball so that we can actually get it back off them in those areas. And also create full space. And what full space is an area of the pitch where we want them to play the ball. They think they have space and time on the ball, but actually we want it to go there because we have a plan to get that ball back effectively. So widen away from going, you see from the diagram there, we've got a danger zone, and that's where we don't want the opposition to have the ball. It's a direct line to goal. It's the middle of the pitch. They have 360 degrees to play with, and that's quite a scary area for the opposition to have the ball. We're actually quite happy for them to have it out wide because we have a sideline and a baseline that acts as a third defender, and we can keep them there, where we can pressurize them and make them play the ball to other areas where we can hopefully get the ball back from them. Predefined zones, and I'll come on to this as a case study for the ladies ones later in the presentation. We have 3 zones there, zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. And the idea is that you select the zone that you actually want the opposition to play into. So for example, if Autumn were defending that goal, we would want them to move the ball from zone 1 to zone 2 into zone 3 as quickly as possible by providing them with full space or loose marking, so that we can actually really keep them in zone 3, which is our stronger, which is our forehand tackle side, and actually it's their reverse side for trying to get the ball in. Full space, and this is just a few areas of the pitch that we may look for them to actually play the ball into, because we have a set plan in place as to what we're going to do when they have the ball there, which could be 2 or 3 players collapsing on the ball carrier, and then moving on from there, really. So moving on to the types of press. So I've just highlighted 5 this evening. That's the full court, which is quite a high press up the field, which involves a lot of organisation and a lot of fitness, puts ultimate pressure on the opposition nearer their goal. The half court press, which is actually probably the most attacking press that there is in the game, contrary to major thoughts on that, purely because you're compacting your half, you're making the opposition commit and make risks, and it gives you a whole half a pitch to counter attack into with lots of space. Zonal presses, which actually allow you to receive the ball into areas of the pitch that you would like it, so that you can control that and apply pressure. There's collapsing presses, which are very similar to zonal. It's just that when the ball goes into a predefined area, you'll get 3 or 4 people all collapsing onto the ball carrier. And interestingly, man-to-man, which the Dutch seem to be doing quite a lot of at the moment. And you'll actually see some of that in play later on in one of the videos. It's really interesting when GB played Holland in the league, Pro League, last game they played in. Danny Carey said after the game that he was shocked that they were man marked for the whole match, but Holland were all over them. So it's quite an interesting tactic, that one. So this is the full court press, just a very basic diagram. There is others out there. I didn't particularly want to put 22 people on a pitch because it could get a bit confusing. But this is also known as the double V press, or is known as the W press as well. And effectively what you can see there is all the passing lanes taken care of and pressure put on the left back who's attempting to take a free hit there. So go to the next one. Half court press, again quite simple. You're just packing out from your half. You'll notice that the centre forward is slightly ahead of the left and right forward there. And that's to create some sort of forced space to actually allow the opposition to play the ball down the sides. And you can then keep them down there. You can split the pitch, which is when you keep the ball on one side and don't let it go to another. And then you can apply pressure and see where you go from there. It's a very attacking press, as I say, because the opposition's got to commit players forward. And if you win the ball and you go forward burst fast or go vertical very quickly, you'll find yourself with lots of space for you to counter attack into. Okay, zonal presses. There's many types of zonal presses out there. This is. Oh, hello. Oh, okay. This is one that the Dutch used a few years ago. It's a double diamond. So that double diamond will move across the pitch in line with the ball. And what they're trying to encourage you to do is actually play the ball into the diamond, where they have a tactic of collapsing or pressurizing you one way or t'other. But it also allows the ball to the side, which is ultimately where you want that to go, because you can also squeeze that down. And we'll see a great clip of England versus Ireland, of where they've actually done that on the pitch as well. Collapsing press, this creates lots of false space, you can see by the squares. And the idea is that the minute the ball enters that square, the 4 players one on each corner will all collapse onto the ball carrier. It does create lots of false space, very aggressive, does need a high level of fitness. In the men's game, you may not see it too often at high levels because the aerial ball will get rid of that. But I've certainly seen that played at certain levels within the England hockey leagues. And the last one is the man-to-man press. And this is something that I actually enjoy, and we'll come on to a case study later with the men's ones and how that's worked for us as part of our sort of pressing tactic. It's very, very aggressive, puts maximum pressure because every player across the pitch is marked. And the person that's taking the free hit really has got their work cut out for them from that one. But again, that's something that can't be sustained for a whole game because fitness level would be required for that. So not quite sure how this will work, but Martin's going to put some people into breakout rooms, fully understand those that don't wish to participate, but that's fine because at least you can listen. So I'm not too sure how many rooms we'll have, Martin. But if we've got 3 rooms, then what I'd like you to think about in your groups that are happy to have a chat is what's the pros and cons of each press type. So room 1 would do the full court press, room 2 half court, and room 3 would do the zonal. So I'd be interested to know what the pros and cons are, but also from the attacking platform as well. So what the press will allow you to do. And then you can feed that back to the group. And then we can have a natter in open forum for a little while if you want to. And then I'll move on to the case studies and the videos.
So Baggy, you got a question from Forbes. Forbes,
Yep.
you want to ask your question?
Well, I think I'll probably save it for the group because I think it will come out. Well, I can ask it, but the question was, with some of those presses, is there not a risk of overcommitting men to the player with the ball? And then if you get it wrong, you kind of, you're in trouble.
Absolutely. That's why I said at the beginning, no press is perfect. So the press has a job to do depending on the defined areas and how your tactics are. So and I'll go into it with the men's ones, but for example, we're playing a new type of zonal press because we want to win the balls in certain areas. If the opposition do get the ball through the layers, we have a backup plan for that. But a press is all about overcommitting. As I said earlier, if a press was perfect, then every game would be 0-0. Does that answer that, Forbes?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And it really comes down to the DNA of the team you have, what your tactics are, and how much risk you're willing to take in the game.
And your opposition, perhaps?
My personal point of view as a coach is that I don't worry too much about what the opposition are doing until we're actually physically in the game, because we need to make sure we're concentrated on our game plan and executing what we're good at rather than worrying about what they can do. So for example, when our ladies ones played Yateley last year, Yateley had quite a strong press which closed off the right hand side. That we actually quite enjoyed playing down the left because we spent quite a lot of time doing left foot pass. So we tweaked them. I think it was actually John that tweaked it at half time. We were actually all over him in the second half, but we didn't change the way we played.
Okay, Baggy, I've got the room set up.
Cool.
If you could just be recognition, guys, that some people aren't really that, are a bit nervous about contributing, but so if we do 3 rooms then, and then so what do you want room 1 to do?
The full court press.
Full court press, okay, and room 2?
Half court.
Okay, and room 3?
Zonal.
Okay, right. So I'm just going to open all the rooms then, guys. You're in room 2, Kev.
Everybody back in, Martin?
No, they're just coming back in.
Cool. I think what we'll do, Martin, is we'll start with room 2, and we'll start with Martin Green probably giving us an overview of what we discussed.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on.
But I think you're the only one making notes.
Okay, right. I think everyone's back in then. Okay, so we did the half court press, and a couple of comments that we had. The first one was actually it's very easily understood. So I think if everyone said, right, we're going to play a half court press in our own half, everyone will immediately understand what that means, even in the men's fives. I think it would also give us a chance to have a breather. So if you called a half court press, actually then you're condensing your own half. There's a chance where some of you, I think if you were a bit tired out, will get a chance to get your breath back. We felt that it was a good press to use if you were leading. So if you were 1-0 up, you could call a half court press, and suddenly, in football terms, you're parking the bus a little bit. So in that sense, it's quite a good defensive tactic. Steph also brought up that actually it's really useful to close the space that you're defending. So there's been incidences in the ladies' ones where teams that have got slightly better players have quickly attacked the space that we've had, certainly in between our sort of strikers and midfielders. So actually, by closing that space down, it makes us more compact at the back. I think the last point was, although we may perceive it as quite a defensive formation, in fact, because there's lots of space to attack into, that when you do get the ball, you can very quickly counter-attack. So actually, what is on one hand is a defensive formation. Actually, quite quickly you can quickly attack. So actually, it probably is quite an attacking formation if you've got the whippets or the quick guys or girls in your team.
Thank
I think
you.
that was it.
Yep, all good. We'll go to room 1 next. We have a volunteer.
I'll do room 1. So we had the full court press. So we said it's quite a risky press because you're committing so many people high. But then kind of when you do get the ball, because you've got so many people already ahead of the ball, it can result in goals and kind of shots on target. However, obviously some of the downsides are it has quite a high demand on your fitness levels, and also kind of the hockey intelligence as well, and that everyone kind of needs to know their defined roles in covering such a large space. And kind of if you're not marking kind of tightly at the back, then there can be a lot of space for the opposition to aerial into, or some dangerous kind of long balls forward. And that kind of gives you, you then have more space to make up in recovery, which was a good point that Charlotte kind of pointed out. So yeah, this is kind of one of the more risky presses, but it can have its good sides when you get some quick shots off.
Absolutely. I think it's really important, Harry, that if the team is able to do that and they have the strength to do that type of press, then it's really important that they do that, because not one press may not be right for one team. It could be great for the other. Good
Indeed.
points there. Thanks very much. And room 3 with the zonal. I thought we might get Ben Morgan talking about this, but obviously not.
Yeah, okay, I can. I thought Kevin was going to go, but I'll have a little chat about it. So positives about it. I think physically it's less demanding than the other ones. It's quite good to normally be sitting back at half court for it. I think once you understand it, it's quite easy to complete. Staying in your lines or your boxes is quite good for people to understand and get used to. Some negatives of it: everyone has to stay focused, or the zone won't work. The collapsing of the pockets won't work. They can easily break up, all that sort of stuff. When it comes to R25, you will have to switch to man-to-man because you can't play a zonal in that small area. Slow collapsing of pockets will instantly break the press, and it won't work. It might be hard to get used to if you've always learnt man-to-man or whatnot. If you don't understand pressing very well, it might be difficult to just get used to. And then we just talked about how to beat it. So you can either go in and out of pockets really quickly with one-touch passes, going wide or going back, and then or just trying to play over it or around it. Over it with some big aerials, if that's possible, around it by getting a quick transfer and then going down the opposite side for wherever it was.
Yep.
So yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Ben. Cool. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. Over to the case studies, Martin.
Okay, which one do you want to start with, Buggy?
Start with the men's ones. Following another slide 15.
Are these the videos you've got?
No. These are on the main presentation.
On the main presentation. Okay, 2 secs.
That's the one. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what we've looked at doing with the men's ones this year. It was quite interesting because in the room I was in, Forbes mentioned that he'd seen us playing a half court press. And actually we've been playing a zonal press with 2 diamonds. So the 2 diamonds on the bottom, we haven't got them put in. Oh, that's the one, thank you. The 2 diamonds on the bottom of the screen there, that dictates the shape of the 7 players that we have in the middle of the pitch in the diagram, the blue players. There should be 2 diamonds there. So we've actually been playing a half-court zonal press, so to speak, where we really want the opposition to play the ball down the sides so that the outside diamond player can then go and apply pressure. More often than not, we found that the opposition play the ball back and round, and we just move across as a whole team, left to right. But the key to this is the middle player of the 2 diamonds. And I have to say that's normally Ben or Alec. And as soon as somebody receives the ball in the diamond, which is an area we're actually allowing them to come into, it's really important that person actually stops them going central across the other side. So we actually keep them on one side of the pitch and keep their back to goal as much as we can so they can't see what's going on ahead towards goal. And we found that the opposition we've been playing against, more often than not, have just bounced the ball back out and not really gone anywhere. And they've spent an awful lot of their game playing the ball around marvelously without actually getting anywhere. And we're actually getting quite adept at intercepting the ball and anticipating what's happening and winning the ball actually in the first 2 lines of those diamonds with the 2 forwards or the 3 across the middle, which is allowing us to counter attack. So it creates full space out wide. It creates full space inside the diamond areas. As Ben said earlier, the forwards are marked man-to-man. That's the opposition forwards are marked man-to-man. There's maximum ball pressure in the zones if the ball's played in. But it's really important that there is no wild tackling out wide, because if you're in there and you're skinned through some skill, the whole thing breaks down. And actually what it's about is denying them space and stopping them going forward and making them put under pressure to play the ball away from goal. And hopefully that's the triggers where we'll intercept or put pressure on the receiver of the ball because we know where that's going. It does overcommit the opposition because they've got to come forward. So that starts to leave holes in their part of the pitch for our counter attack, with lots of space to go into when we regain possession. And this comes into principles because when we regain possession, the first thing we think about is playing the ball vertical. So that links into the DNA of the side in our principles and tactics. And interestingly, to start the second half, we go man-to-man for 10 minutes. Now, we played the league leaders Romsey. We're very, very unlucky to lose that game without being prejudiced or biased. but they spent the whole half time talking about our amazing press and then had no answer for what we did for the first 10 minutes of the man-to-man. They really struggled with that, but there's only so much that you can keep that up for with the fitness levels we had. So I think it's important that you have at least 2 presses per side, depending on the situation. But ultimately, everything works around the 3-second rule, which is whenever the opposition have the ball, it's 3 seconds to close them down in open play, or when they're playing the ball back out of the press. We can get onto that ball receiver within 3 seconds and shut them down. We will pretty much gain the ball, and that's actually been quite. It's been quite good for us this year because the opposition haven't been able to figure out how to break it down or actually how to get around it, which is why we've done so well. We move on to the next one. Slightly different with the ladies ones, purely because the ladies in the men's game is very different, purely because of pace of ball and the length of aerials, etc., that can be chucked, unless you're Monica, of course. But with the ladies ones, we've been working on 3 zones on the pitch, zones 1, 2, and 3, very similar to the slide earlier. And we have been applying a full court press or a double V during our games. And what we're looking at doing is ensuring that that ball goes from zone 1 over to zone 3 as best we can. We're women for women in our 25, very tight to make sure that that's closed up. But we don't want the ball in zone 1, we want it in zone 2. If it's in zone 2, we then really want it to go back to we want to go to zone 3, we don't want to go back to zone 1. So the way that we approach our marking and communication across the pitch is really key to ensure that happens. And what we're actually effectively doing is executing that by giving them full space in zone 3. So the marking slightly loose to get them over there. We want to regain possession in zone 3 because that's actually our counter attack side. That's where we're on our 4 stick, and we're actually going up against their back stick. But it also allows us to play the ball into the middle of the pitch so that we can counter quite quickly in the danger zone or in zone 3. And again, something the ladies have successfully worked on for the last 2 seasons, and it is pretty much in the DNA now of the squad, is the 3-second rule. It's getting that on that person who has that ball within 3 seconds to stop them. And that has actually worked quite well. I think, John, if you want to add, how's that works for you?
It's worked when everyone knows what they're doing. I think it's as we've said with presses, it only needs one person to not quite be on it, and it gets frustrating for the whole team. I think that's been the challenge. When we've executed it really well, it's worked brilliantly, and you can see people, it clicks. You only need 1 or 2 people to drift out of it, and everybody else gets annoyed, and everyone stops doing it, and it kind of goes downhill from then on. But no, yeah, it's worked really effectively. Certainly last season, getting to promotion, I think the press was probably one of the key parts in that success for sure.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so time for some videos. So over to Martin again. So the first video I want to highlight is England versus Ireland. And this is where England have set up a zonal press. Please pause. So as you can see here, you can clearly see there's 2 diamonds, slightly obscured because of where the game is. You can see that the 2 Irish players are trying to attempt to stay inside the diamond to give those outlets. You can see the space in front of the front diamond there with the green shaded area. You notice that England isn't stretching into that area. They're keeping quite flat, and they're staying in their half, allowing Ireland to play the ball around to frustrate them. Interestingly, you can see with the green arrow on the top of the screen, if the ball is played outside wide, that wide England player is going to be on that player immediately, and everybody will track across accordingly. So you can see the ball's gone out wide. You've got full space in the diamonds. And you can see that's where they're going to look to collapse. He can't play the ball vertical because the outside diamond player has actually taken the line to that player, the passing lane. And he's pretty much covered by the outside diamond player on the top of the screen in the second diamond coming down. So you can see the full space is clearly there. The ball's played in, collapse, counter. Simple as that. Lovely little demonstration there. I think we're now going to move on to, that's it, Spain versus Germany, ladies. Very interesting. You can see they've got their diamond there, allowing the ball to move left or right. They're actually allowing the ball to go to the right here pretty much, which looks like it's part of their tactic. Now you see they've slightly changed there. They've gone into a V. Players drop back to take the hotline. You can see the person at the base of the V has the ability to actually come in left if required. The ball carrier is going to have pressure put on immediately. The Spanish player at the bottom screen has actually split the pitch and stopping the ball coming over onto the other side. And the player on the left-hand side of the V at the top of the screen is also taking the passing lane to the player that's highlighted in the yellow spotlight as well. And I think what we see moving on is quite a bit of pressure, which results in mishit. Spain have the ball, and off they go from the sideline. Now we have Germany pressing, and you see they've got that diamond shape again, but they're actually allowing the ball to go to left-hand side. So it's possible they have some sort of tactic in there, allow them to go there. But you'll see that everybody else behind the diamond is pretty much man on man. So the pressure's on. If the ball's played to that person, they're going to be under pressure immediately. Perhaps the Spanish player at the bottom of the screen should really be more inside that false area, but she's sort of out of the game there. So the ball's been played around the back there. You'll see that now Germany aren't going out to get the ball. They haven't run out there to try and steal it. They've actually come back again into their own half. They're not going into that shaded area. They're staying condensed. So you can see the man-to-man marking. You can see that the Spanish player hasn't received the ball in an open forward stance, so she can't see what's going on the left-hand side further up the pitch, but that person's covered anyway by a German defender should that pass be made. Pressure's about to be played onto the ball carrier. Really good bit of hockey here. See the German forward? And now she's splitting the pitch. So they've actually got their objective now. They've gone man-to-man in their half. And that player that's splitting the pitch is not allowing the ball to be recycled to the other side of the pitch. And ultimate pressure is being played onto them. So they take the ball into that full space so that they're going to try and intercept or win it with a quick eye fit or jump in front of the player. And actually what happens is the player takes it forward. She does an aerial. The aerial actually ends up going off the end of the pitch. You can see there's maximum pressure now from the lead player who split the pitch. And actually Germany are actually in a very, very good man-to-man area for marking. Okay, cool. We're now going to go on to a great video of Holland versus Germany with the men. So straight away we can see the forward Dutch, which I think is Mr. Janssen, is splitting the pitch there. He's actually stopping the ball going back deep, which the Germans like to do a lot. You can see that the gentleman on the ball has only got one option really available to him, because the line to the width is covered off by the far player on spotlight. So he's been played into the guy in the middle. Now he's had to receive with his back to goal, so you can't see what's going on up the pitch forward because the pressure's there. You can see the forward line are starting to creep up to put ultimate pressure onto those players. Mr. Janssen still in the yellow spotlight, stopping the ball going back. You'll also see that the Dutch defender at the bottom is actually in front of his mark, just covering that passing lane, because he's also recognised where the full space is. At full spaces towards the bottom of the screen, that's where they actually want Germany to play the ball. The ball's played. You can now see the Dutch defenders have now picked their mark. So there's no way that ball's going over to the other side of the pitch now. And you can see the player who was eye fit, he's actually going to step forward now and apply maximum pressure onto the receiver of the ball. So he receives the ball. He's only got two options. Option to go forward, he's not in the right body position for, because he's been closed down very, very quickly within 3 seconds. And that yellow shaded box is actually, that's the tackle area there. And the ball carrier knows if he takes the ball into that area, he's probably going to lose it because he's off balance, he's not prepared. The only place he can go is left. But that player is going to be under maximum pressure because he's pretty much being man-to-man marked. You can see everybody else across the pitch is being looked after by a Dutch player. So it does a nice little V-drag, but interestingly there, the player marks the man. He's gone man-to-man there. Maximum pressure there on the outside, I think it's Billy Bakker onto the ball carrier. Line to goals taken through Billy Bakker's right foot, the other Dutch player. There is a German player in the middle of the pitch unmarked, and he is a bit loose there. So that looks like where the ball's going to go, but you can see at the back, Mr. Janssen in the spotlight, still got that deep ball being played and was still man-to-man there. So the ball's played into the middle. And it's interesting, he didn't go forward because he's got 2 Dutch players there. So he's decided to go back again because he's recognised that actually they're overcommitted on one side. They need to get to the other side of the pitch. But interestingly, you see that everybody's man-to-man. There's 2 players in the middle taking the line to goal. Excuse me. And actually those forwards are now running back towards the halfway line. One of them to actually try and put pressure on the pass being made back. That pass is made back. You now see Holland's pretty much all behind the ball. The full space is again given. You can see the line to the pass on the outside is taken by at least 2 players and everybody else is man-to-man. You see his passing options are taken away from him, goes back to the full space. And interesting here, you'll see in the next 3 or 4 seconds, is that player who's encroached on the ball carrier, he makes no tackle. He puts pressure, he's taken the line to goal. You can see the 2 covering screens there are taking the line towards the D. Everybody else is man-to-man. And interestingly, you've got the Mr. Janssen in his purple now spotlight. He's just patiently sitting there to stop the ball back or for a counter-attack opportunity. So he takes the ball down into the corner, no tackle made, decide he can't go anywhere. Now I'm hoping you'll start to see what's happening here. Their game plan has actually worked. They've got maximum player pressure on a player who's now dribbling away from goal. He can't go backwards because the player in the lilac spotlight or magenta spotlight is then cutting off his way back. Counter-covering defender is stopping the ball being made around the back. Man-to-man everywhere. There's only one place this player can go. turns into the sideline. No tackle made, purely pressure there has caused a mistake. And as you can see, immediately the counter attack's on. You can see everybody's man-to-man behind before that play. And as a Dutch player on the help side of the pitch or ball side of the pitch who's got the shaded area covered, it can also go out wide if the ball's moved across as well. But counters on. Ball's played forward. And an opportunity had. Now, the interesting thing for me after that whole clip is actually no tackle made against the ball carrier. And they forced that through pressure and the opposition, the team on the ball actually making a mistake in their pass because of that pressure and decision making. That's a really good example of how things work. So the question ends really with everybody going away and having a think about what press is best for their team. And that is it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Maggie, I've got a question for you.
Yep.
That was good, thank you. We played up at Wandsworth that time, the twos.
Yeah.
And we started off the beginning of the game with a half-court press.
Yeah.
Which confused quite a lot of us, including myself. Could you talk through the logic behind why you'd start off with a press?
What do you mean? Why start what?
Well, my understanding is they're sort of slightly, you're in a commanding position or you want to maintain your position, coming up to half time, for example, a half court.
So
we started off like that.
The half court press for the men's twos is purely around the fact that your forward line are like lightning.
Okay.
And the movement that Dom, Johnny Maddox, and Hamish give is just ridiculous. It's leagues above where they should be playing personally. And so we want to condense the area so that we've got good players who read the game well, like yourself and Grev, just as an example. And you've got Andy and Graham and Cam and Dave, etc. Who are very, very good at winning that ball back in key areas, but being very tight on their man-to-man marking. So you're creating maximum pressure for the opposition to make the correct pass when they're on the ball. And more often than not, what's happening is from that pressure alone and the structure, you're regaining the ball, it's getting to Dom, it's then to Hamish, it's then to Johnny, and it's in the back of the net, and then we're back on the halfway line. And that's why you guys have been scoring, I think, over 5 goals a game, something silly like that, because it's been working. You can always use that press when you're ahead, just before half time, to make sure your play don't get a goal. It's dictate play, have a rest, have a look at what they do and what they don't do, who's the weakest players on their pitch, where can we go from there. But it's really important that you have that second press to fall back on as well, like we do with the men, where we go man to man with the men's ones, because that just mixes it up a little bit. Haven't quite decided what's best for the men's 2 squad with regards to that, but that tactic's working really well, hence your position in the league and why everybody hates playing against you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, guys, any more questions for Baggy?
Nice.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Baggy.
No problem at all.
Thank you, Baggy.
That's all
Thank
right.
you.
Maggie, thanks.
Love the new software.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Fancy stuff.
If anybody wants to stay and talk about the software, it's pretty cool. It'll take a couple of minutes.
That was very interesting, Baggy. And those clips you showed, there was a lot of very smart movement from the forwards defending. There was one in that Dutch one where prior to the ball going left, the guy in the left, using the left part of the diamond, takes a deliberate step right just to cut out that ball forward.
Yeah.
He barely knows it. He cuts that. Once that's been cut out, he can go somewhere else. That, and the other thing that came out of that, to certainly lower down the club, we don't do very well. It's the defensive role of the key attackers. That ability to prevent the ball going left half, right half, smack right across the back and taking everything out.
Yeah, and that purely comes to splitting the pitch, and that takes time. A lot of pressing is purely around the psychological and mental part of the game. It's knowing what your role is and not diving in or drastically trying to get the ball back. It's about waiting until the right opportunity and you know where the ball is and you then got to execute the plan. So, for example, we've got, some really good leaders in the men's ones this season in that press pocket area. Ben Morgan and Alex have really dominated the middle of that press, and everybody knows what they should be doing and where. Liam and Harry have had a really good influence on keeping people on a leash. So like Hamish likes to get the ball, but there's been times where both Liam and Harry have really instructed Hamish to not be so keen, and it's kept its shape really well. And we were so unlucky not to do Romsey over. They even after the game, they were caught in the car park talking about they can't understand why they won or how they won or what happened in the game. And the feedback from Stuart Robertson, who's their coach, who I know, was that they can't believe we're not up in 1 or 2 in the league alongside them, because they've not played a team like us, and the strategy and everything in place really put them under a lot of pressure. But then again, the men's twos from doing it have shown how well it works at that level as well. So it's just the little bits, but having the training set up like we do in the men's side is actually very helpful, so we can have those full pitch games towards the end of the session where we can try these things out and we can work on them, and you can see it in live action.
I think the comment that Harry's group made in relation to the press they were talking about, that these things do require everybody to know what's going on. It only takes one player to be step at the wrong time, step the wrong way, and suddenly direct route to goal can open up. Discipline, you've got to work. You've got to, and I think John.
The more riskier presses you use, the more is high risk, high gain. You're likely to have areas where you're going to fall down. So I would never look at doing a full court press from a male in a male game, because if you've got somebody like Luke who sits at the back, he's going to chuck a 60-yard aerial and your press is gone. So it's better to come back towards that halfway line or even 3/4 and try and condense it and not allow them that space to chuck those aerials in.
I've certainly seen a number of ladies twos games this season where I wouldn't want to go with the high court press, because were the ball to come out, one might get exposed in a foot race.
But then, if I can say, Sophie, that all depends on the makeup of the team, hockey intelligence and hockey fitness.
Yeah.
Because you have to.
I would say very intelligent, Sophie.
Absolutely. You have to put your tactics in place for the team that you have. There's no point. I mean, it just comes back to DNA and principle. There's no point trying to coach Alton to be a defensive orientated club where we work on defence and attack as secondary, because it's not in our DNA. We will score 8, they'll score 7. And that's
Charlotte will run swiftly to the front.
Absolutely. So it's all about knowing your players. And last season, the makeup of the men's 2s and 1s dictated the type of press we use. And it's the same with the ladies, that dictated the type of press we use. I think that the press will change for the ladies next season. That's something that me and John are talking about loosely at the moment, to make it a bit different. So sides who come up against us think we're going to play one way and another. But what was really interesting for me out the whole of this was Forbes making his comments from a coaching perspective of the men's ones playing a half court press, when actually we don't. We play zonal, but we just play it deep. And that's really interesting from a coaching perspective, because that means that other teams believe we're playing half court, which is actually what we want them to do, because we've got a different system in place. Romsey couldn't figure out why they were losing the ball and why they weren't doing a lot with the ball when they had so much of the ball during the game. It was really quite interesting.
Which is fair enough, Baggy, because the year before it was the other way around with Romsey. They did it to us quite well.
Yeah. So Matt, how's it been for the men's twos in the games you play? How have you found that pressing system, the management and all that sort of stuff?
I think once we've got the hang of it, yes, certainly the half court works really nicely. The other trouble you've got is remembering colours. I was saying to the greatest hype man, but that's this thing.
Yeah, I suppose it's finding another system perhaps that works. Yeah,
but we were also saying we couldn't think of a team that we came against that paid any form of press other than man-to-man marking. We're not sure. In fact, the only team I could think of that have done it was when we played Wandsworth first team, they used to they'd come down once a season at the end, in an evening. They're the only team that I can remember talking about presses.
Interesting. But then again, that's possibly why we are where we are.
Yep.
Which is
so.
good. Which is good. Harry, how have you found it, men's ones wise? If Harry's still there?
Yeah, sorry, I was just yeah, no, it's been good. I think it took a while to get kind of set up, but I think it kind of evolved. We kind of trialed a lot. I remember like the honeycomb thing, which I think is now just a diamond, but yeah, we kind of started off with just a half court press coming from wrong braggy, but this is how I remember it. And then we kind of evolved it, that then we channel them to the side, and then we kind of lock them into the side, and then that's how we captured the ball. There's a few different elements going on, but I think if we just built it up over the course of a month or two, kind of week by week at each training session, just kind of starting off with a half court press and just layering it up. But yeah, now that we've kind of got it in place, and because as a tactic, I guess it's quite simple to understand once you're doing it, but because no one else at our level was really using these kind of presses or tactics, it does just give you so much of a upper hand. And it's also just nice to know what you're doing when you're in a pitch and just working as a whole as a team. Like quite often at previous clubs, it's just, we just go, man to man, and then, someone loses their man and it's no big deal and that's it. But here, when you have a more defined role of responsibility, it's nice. And then when it does pay off, that it is a team effort. So that's also one of the positives of it as well.
Brilliant. Thanks for your feedback, mate. It's been fun. Thoroughly enjoyable. It's been really, really good. And I think as well, those types of presses, that's the sort of thing that we do at county level. That's what I had with the under 14s last cycle when I was coaching them. We were playing a half court press, and we were playing man to man for certain areas of the game as well, with man or woman to woman in our 25. So it doesn't matter what level you're coaching at, it's what's best for those sides. And I think for the junior side at our club, we do need to start to encourage the use of the half court to begin with, so that they understand how it works and what it does, and it gives them structure. And then we can then explore as they get older where that goes through. But it means that when they hit the adult side of the club, they're not looking at you like you're like an Eskimo when somebody says about a half court press. They actually know what it means and they've experienced it, which is pretty good.
Maggie, just on that point actually, and I was sort of thinking, well, how I know tonight's session was aimed at the adult section of the club, whether we could do something similar with the junior section, but make it but simplify it. And I thought actually the last video was really good. Grace was sat next to me, and I was explaining the no tackle element and how putting that player putting them under the pressure will force them into making a mistake. So I think there's something there that we could do with the juniors, because I know that's a really difficult concept to get across, because they want to tackle. I'm trying to say, no, you need to hold back, put them under pressure, but don't tackle. They will make the mistake. And I think if we have some videos like that we could perhaps show them, I think that would really help.
It's there's a whole host of stuff going on in the background, and there's lots of conversations with myself and John about how to possibly make things easier, transition wide from junior to senior side of the club. That what you just explained all comes into that. And there's certain small-sided games you can play where you can get them to experience half-court presses without actually using the word half-court press. But trying to tell somebody who's under the age of 12 that they can't go and get the ball is quite difficult, because all they want to do is get the ball. It's not. I find normally as soon as they get to sort of 13, it starts to creep in a little bit, because for example, the Belgium have this philosophy where if a player has the ball, the first thing they must do is get within eye range of that person, because as soon as you're visually there, the mind alters. You start to guard the ball, your eyesight goes down a little bit, even in the elite level, and the pressure starts to increase. The next thing you do is you get technical. What they mean by technical is you get in close and you're starting to use your defensive skills to put even more pressure on the player to do the right thing with the ball. And then the third thing is physical, and that's when, if you have to, you're actually going to have to take the ball because nothing else has worked. But more often than not, if you watch the Belgian men play, they very, very rarely make a tackle in their play, because they just win the ball by interception after interception after interception. It's really interesting to watch. Of course, there'll be tackles going in, but looking across the actual game itself, a higher percentage of the balls won are through those interceptions, stepping in front of players, etc.
I wonder then whether it's sort of we can maybe target an age group and up. And I was thinking with the under 12s, I start to introduce those concepts, because I know that one or two of those players are going to be going forward to DC, and that's where they're going to come.
What we need, and saying it's something I'm speaking to John in depth about, is our player pathway within the club, the principles within that player pathway from under 8 upwards, and the building blocks of the small building blocks needed to assist them in becoming good players, and then the structured coaching through the season, i.e. how we put the structure in place from week to week, and what it is that we want to achieve at the end of the season. Because the problem is that more often than not, you will bounce around what you're doing depending on what the game is and what you're trying to get across, rather than put that whole framework of foundation in across the whole season. So by the end of it, they're well-rounded. So, for example, the only principle that our young juniors, is it under 8s we start at? Under
yep.
Yeah, is that
under 8?
The one thing that under 8 should be doing at our club is learning how to stop the ball. Stop the ball to go forward, stop the ball to defend, because by the time they get to adult level, if they can't stop the ball, then it breaks play down. They can stop the ball, they can't stop it correctly. If we have a number of 9-year-olds appearing on the pitch who can stop the ball across their body to go forward, stop it to stop the defender, and actually stop it and bring it under control, that's the basis of your linked play moving forward. And it's highlighting the work that I'm doing with John loosely, and as we get back to normality, a bit more of it is those small building blocks. So as they get older, there'll be more principles. But what it will mean is by the time they get to 13 and they're playing adult hockey, they'll have a set of basics in place which will enable them to transition easily, and then we can build on that into the men's and ladies game. So could you imagine, Forbes and Kev, having 3 13-year-olds coming into your side who can all stop a ball to go forward or defend it, who can hit a ball, and who left foot pass?
Yeah.
Well, we had one coming into the 3s, and he's knocking on the door of the 2s already.
Yeah, no, but this is what I'm saying. If we can put that through as a foundation, and it's interesting because on the ladies' side of the club, and I'm going to highlight Charlotte here. Charlotte has taken on board all of the little foundation blocks through the development centre she's been at, and hence why Charlotte's was put forward for county this year for assessment, because she's now at that level where she's literally on a par with county players, because she's got the building blocks of using the left foot pass, closing people down within 3 seconds, and just playing standard simple hockey and always be moving. And that's everything we look for in the player pathway. And if you can run that through for all of the kids as they get older, if we start doing this next season in 5 years' time, we're looking at a great amount of kids coming through into this adult section who are so good on their solid technique that the rest just rolls on with the training. Oh, excuse me. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Yes, it does.
But yeah, it's work in progress.
Well, no, I can. Well, absolutely. I mean, can't remember how old he is. 14, 15. So having that young man come into the 3s and knowing that actually I can put a pass into him, or he knows that I'm looking for a left foot pass and he's going to position himself in the right place. He's already performing at a higher standard than a lot of players on that pitch. In fact, that's one of the reasons I think in his first game he came off as man of the match.
If I could highlight Dom Cooney, Don's impact on the men's first 11 has been ridiculous. Just his basic play. He never loses the ball unless he's ball carrying on the left when he can be put under pressure, but we're working on that. Apart from that, everything's left foot pass. He shuts people down within 3 seconds. His movement is just phenomenal. And all of that sort of stuff he's learned through being in the player pathway. And he's come into that one squad and people are like glad to have him in there, but now people don't want him in there because he's pushing them for places. It's causing selection issues. And then with them, Hamish joins us, and then they're all fighting. But the good thing is, they're all fighting for a place on a Saturday, and that's the sort of environment that you want, because it brings the best out in people in a nice way. So yeah, plans afoot, but as a club, we are in a fantastic position to get it right, where other clubs in our area around us aren't looking at anything. They're just going to carry on with what they think is best and not making any changes in their structure. And I think by us putting a blueprint down, we're going to reap our rewards, consolidate where we are, and actually survive the turmoil that's due with everything that's going on. I mean, if I look at Yateley and Fleet, they're losing players. They're losing the grip on all the hard work that's been done in certain areas of the club, and the clubs are shrinking. Fleet have decided to join the London leagues, the Surrey leagues, purely because of level of hockey and also travel. They're finding the ladies are finding the Hampshire League too strong for them. It's quite interesting. So yeah, quite buoyed and quite enthusiastic and quite positive about next season. I think we're in a really good place.
You need to actually need to be playing some hockey. That's what we need to do, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah.
We need to not have 3 teams in the same league.
Oh no,
Yeah.
we won't. Don't worry. So I think we'll find the men's ones will be in South Central. Sounds like Gangland LA, doesn't it? South Central, South East. I think our men's ones are in Div 1, men 2 in Div 2, men's 3s in Div 3, men's 4 Div 4. I think that's how it's working its way out.
Okay, so it's got better than it was. At one point, the men's 3s were going to be 1 league above the 6s.
Yeah.
In one of the drafts, and that was not a good.
Yeah, that's my belief. Whether that's changed or not, I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I think as soon as we can get back on the pitch, we can really start looking at working towards next season, really, and getting all the tactics and principles in place, and everybody just understanding them and moving forward, really.
Just on the leagues, so just a question on the leagues. Has a final decision been made? Are we literally playing?
I think it's pretty much been made, yeah.
Opposition once and that'll define.
Oh no,
playing everybody twice.
Hampshire have cancelled the league full stop. They're waiting South. I think we're waiting for South to make their minds up, that they tend to dither. But I would assume that the league will be. I think the league will be closed down. Personally.
I will try and butter up the COVID officer, Baggy, to see if we can get any hockey in.
Well, it depends. I mean, if we end up going back to the same tiers as before, and we're in tier 3, then there's nothing stopping us from doing what we did. And I think that actually the sessions we put together and how everybody acted, I think we were very mature and actually did everything very, very well, I think, considering.
I think people would just be keen to get back on pitch in any shape or form.
Yeah.
Training.
Absolutely.
Club sessions, local games, whatever we're allowed to do, we will have people clamoring.
Yeah.
How good would it be to actually get all of the set plays and tactics in place by July? So by the time we get to a new league season of friendlies in August and September, we are so far ahead of all of our opposition because we're all set in stone. We know roughly what we're doing.
Yeah.
Glorious.
Give us the upper hand.
Isn't it?
Lovely if we knew 70% of the players that were going to be available at that stage.
That's another story.
That's for Wednesday, Baggy.
Yeah, that's for Wednesday.
Surely no one's going anywhere, are they?
University.
Yeah.
I have a plan, John. Don't worry, I have a plan.
university from their sitting rooms.
Yeah, from home they still play.
Brilliant. But no, I've enjoyed tonight, everyone. It's been really good fun.
That's been brilliant, Baggy. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Really enjoyed it, Baggy. Thank you very much.
That's
Thank you
cool.
very much. Good to see everyone.
That software is reasonably cheap, and all you have to do is record the videos via PowerPoint, and then you just save it as an MP4, and then you just put it into the software, and you can put all sorts of stuff on there and send it out as clips to players and what have you. So I know that Matt was talking about videoing games and Ds sort of at the beginning of the season. I think it's worth something we should possibly look at for next year, is just having our D videoed throughout the whole game, and then quite happy to go through that footage over the weekend for certain teams at a time, and just pull out whether our defensive short corners are going wrong or well, and how our marking is in the D, so players can physically actually see what's going on, and we can start being aware of that and then correcting those very basic errors.
Yeah, we will have to get some quite detailed permissions from opposition.
Yeah, absolutely.
The biggest challenge is permission from Eggers, actually. I've got the camera sitting up there doing nothing at the moment.
Oh, is it? Oh, wow. Okay.
Anyway, we'll get there. Yeah.
Excellent. No, thank you.
Okay,
Everyone.
let's call it a night then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Baggy.
No,
Thanks, everyone, guys.
Yeah.
Guys.
Thanks, mate. Be in touch.
See you next week.
You will.
Yeah, guys. Yeah.
Yes.